Welcome to Surviving the Side Hustle, the podcast for high performers who've gone all in, but still feeling a little stuck. I'm your host, Rob Tracy, coach, speaker, and creator of the Prime Performance Process. If you're a solopreneur, small business owner, or just launched your side hustle and you're tired of grinding with no momentum, this is for you. Every week, we bring you guests that have broke the code, generated momentum, and finally got unstuck. And we're diving into their stories, their struggles, and their secrets to generating massive momentum in both their personal and professional lives. We don't do fluff here. We do frameworks, real talk, and share the kind of insights that get you unstuck for good. Welcome, and let's get rolling. But before we dive in, I gotta remind you, if you're overwhelmed, spinning your wheels, or just tired of hustling without the results, it's time for a Prime Performance Strategy session. In this free call, we'll zoom out on your life and business, identify the real reason you're feeling stuck, and build a game plan to help you reclaim your confidence, energy, and gain some clarity so you can get back to doing what you set out to do. Lead, grow, and thrive. This isn't surface level coaching. It's a system built on resilience, intentionality, clarity, and alignment. So head over to survivingthesidehustle.com/free call to grab your spot today. Again, that's survivingthesidehustle.com/free call. Let's get going and help you look good, feel good, and do great things. What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Surviving the Side Hustle. I'm excited because today we've got Jordan on the show. So a little bit about Jordan. He is a 2-time exited founder, and he's the president of StratDev, which is a top 100 ranked marketing firm. He's built multiple companies from the ground up, experienced the full spectrum roller coaster of startup life, and navigating both the highs and lows of scaling a business. He's very passionate about sharing those lessons, and specifically with audiences who are looking to grow smarter. So you guys are in for a sweet treat today. So Jordan, welcome to the show, man.
What a introduction, Rob. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I know that you have, the podcast and being a host here, but if it doesn't work out, ringside announcer might be up your alley as well. Great introduction. Thank you, my man.
Love that. Thank you so much. That's exciting. So tell me a little bit about yourself, because we were talking right before we kicked off, and there's a couple of things that we could dive into, but I'm interested to hear, where do you want to take it to start off with your story? Where did you begin this entrepreneurial journey? I know college was the first taste of it for yourself.
Yeah, the Wikipedia page says college, but I'll actually take it just a little bit earlier than that. So I grew up with divorced parents, and every other weekend I would go over to my father's townhome, and there was a community pool there. And I think I was maybe 4 or 5 years old. We had a very small backyard. It was probably a 2 foot by 2 foot patch of grass in the corner, and there was one tree on it that took up about all of the 2 feet by 2 feet, and it was a plum tree. And during the summers, it bared the fruit of a plum. And so when I was 5 years old, I realized 2 things. One, that these plums are really, really, really good. And 2, that when I gave them to my friends, they also really enjoyed these plums. And so every weekend we would go to that community pool, and I had just the genius idea, hey, let's try to fit as many little plums into a Ziploc bag and sell them at the community pool. And so I started to do this every other weekend when my dad had me. And I would, at 5 or 6 years old, right, be making from the equivalent of a 5 to 6 year old bank from 50 to 60 cents. There'd be a little line of people waiting for these plums, and I would completely, strip naked this tree of all of the fruit every other weekend. But it was so much fun, and I realized at that time that I had a couple of talents. One, that I could make people smile. And maybe it's because I was, a cute 6-year-old back at that time selling plums. But I like to think I make people smile. 2, that I really enjoy the passion of and the art of selling and business as a whole. And then 3, that, I'm able to solve problems or be a solution, right? You're at the pool, kids are running around, they're exerting a lot of energy. They need plums, sugary fruit, healthy food, right? To regain the energy. And so, it was a simple solution back then, but I think that really sparked my interest into entrepreneurship as a whole. So, fast forward to high school, I used to, flip iPhones. I used to resell shoes, things like that, as a lot of, 16-year-olds, entrepreneurs do. I had a couple of, fun little, side businesses there. And then going into college, I really tried to go 100% into entrepreneurship after I realized that college really wasn't for me. Mind you, I still did my 4 years. I still graduated. I followed through with that promise, but I built a small handful of companies during that time, and a couple of them did end up being successful. So that first one was, as I was a freshman, is a college apparel company called College Clout. We made custom designs for fraternities, sororities, clubs, organizations across school campuses, and slapped that on a Comfort Colors t-shirt and then shipped it out in bulk to that entire club or organization. And so grew that over my tenure at UC Santa Barbara, and ended up selling that my senior year to a great company called Greek House, which just recently got acquired by University Tees. So if you have any, nephews, Rob, look at the back of their t-shirts if they're in college, and they'll likely be University Tee.
That's pretty cool. And I love the growth and evolution of your entrepreneurship, and the businesses that you work with too. It's kind of cool to see them kind of growing up and getting acquired. And I'm interested to hear about this though. So where did you get the ideas for all this stuff? Either of your parents an entrepreneur, or did it like just start coming to you? And then how did you know what to do as a freshman in college? Did you study any of this?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, Rob. So did I study it? No, I at UC Santa Barbara was an economics major, and UC Santa Barbara is a public school. I learned a little bit too late, as I had already made the decision to be an economics major, that public universities and the same with UC Santa Barbara teach economics in a very theoretical way, which means that it's not practical nor applicable. So you're not, for example, learning how to, learning business in a practical manner, but rather just, ideas of, theories of. And so it was very hard for me to try to mesh the two. So could I, backtrack it to, oh yeah, I learned a lot in the classroom? No, unfortunately not. Question that you had was, did you get it from your parents? No, I didn't. I am not just with my immediate family, but really extended family, only entrepreneur, or at least the first entrepreneur in the family. Everybody had really worked in corporate, or at least attempted to climb up that corporate ladder to find success. And that's really, at least growing up, the definition of success that my father instilled in me. So fast forward into college, when College Clout was starting to pick up some steam, I remember that he wanted me to essentially apply to all the FANG companies: Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google. And I got waitlisted at Amazon, and then I did get accepted for an internship at Apple for I think my freshman to my sophomore year. And I ended up rejecting them and instead saying, hey, I'm actually going to go full time during the summer on my company and see how much I can grow it. Saying that pissed off my dad was an understatement. He was very, very, very disappointed in me. Jordan, it's not like you decided to do this and you didn't have another opportunity, right? You had an amazing opportunity and you turned it down, and you still did this. And so, fast forward, a couple of years, I tell him, hey, I'm actually not going to get a job out of college. I want to continue on this path, which further, I think, disappointed him. And then there was, my, I had a kid's bank account, and in college it was attached to my parents. And there was a point in time where the bank account just started to go exponentially, really, really, really quickly. And my parents could see that they had visibility. And so I think that, it's kind of an unspoken thing, but my mom actually said something when I came back from, for winter break or something like that. It's like, Jordan, like, we're looking at your account. Your account is growing insane. Like, what are you doing? Are you drug dealing? Are you like, what's going on? No, mom, it's the business. My dad kind of gave me that little nod of respect that you get, the dude nod where you kind of,
Yeah.
Turn your chin down. There was that. And then by, the first year of me graduating college, my dad did something quite phenomenal, which is that he ended up quitting his corporate job of 20 years to go into entrepreneurship. And so I think that is probably one of my biggest successes in life, the fact that I changed my dad's mind, which is so difficult. And as a fellow guy, I'm sure that you can, really appreciate that. And so, yeah, long story short, no, I didn't come from entrepreneurs. Where did it come from? If I'm being honest, I don't know. I think it's a mix of impatience and tenacity together, where I didn't want to wait my 4 years of college to make something happen. And then tenacity, like I'm a hard worker. I like to, get the fruits of my labor. My parents didn't hand me anything. I had friends that, whose parents bought them their car. My parents said, "Nope, we're not buying you your car. Like, you're working for that shit." And so
Yeah.
I learned to be tenacious. And so, I do have my parents to thank for that, but I think it was just a mixture of the two. I wanted to carve something out for myself.
Yeah, you said early on that kind of getting into the entrepreneurial world, you realize that you get to solve a lot of problems, and seeing that you turning down like excellent opportunities for internship just to take on the challenge and the problem itself shows a lot of grit and determination and tenacity and everything you were just saying there. So I'm excited to kind of hear as you were kind of growing and working through these companies and things that you were growing yourself on both business and personally, what were some of like the big obstacles or challenges that you kind of came into? Did it just like, was it more was it personal kind of development growth, or was it more of like a business kind of thing that you needed to kind of work through to get up to the next level? Because scaling at a quick pace has got to be kind of scary and exciting for everybody, but it can be tough and something to learn to get over that hump to the next stage.
Yeah, when you sign up to be an entrepreneur, you're also signing up to not have a full, complete, isolated separation between personal and business. So everything becomes blended into one, right? It's not like you have a 9 to 5 where you clock in at 9, okay, business mode, and then from 9 to 5, clock out, okay, personal mode after 5 o'clock. And so, I think it has been a mix of the two. I think a lot of things that I've learned in business has helped me personally. I think a lot of things that have helped me, or that I've learned personally, have helped me in business. And so, I started at a relatively young age. My now company that I'm working on, a company called StratDev. It's a digital marketing company. I started that also in college as a junior. I was 20 years old, and getting those first customers was very difficult. And the reason being is because I looked really, really, really young. I have a little bit of a beard. There's a reason why I keep this patchy beard going on, and it's because I look my age. I'm 26 now. If I shave this thing, I immediately go to 21. And so when I was 20 years old with no beard, I looked probably at best 16, 17 years old. And so, these business owners that I was trying to solicit to garner their business, were the age of my parents or the age of my grandparents. And so when I spoke to them, I was trying to, be all macho and big and, act all professional, and it just looked cute to them. It's like, oh, cool. Like little kid is trying to, act like a big businessman. And it didn't really bring the respect that I was hoping that it would to bring. So it was definitely, a big disadvantage. And so what I ended up doing to turn that over is I instead of trying to push it away, I embraced my youth. And so the company is a digital marketing agency. And so a lot of these older business owners are doing marketing tactics that worked maybe 10, 20 years ago, but the digital marketing world's moved really quickly. And back in, 2020, when COVID ended up coming into play, right? A lot of these businesses were forced to move from a digital marketing transition. That was really the big boom of digital marketing. And so I accepted that and said, well, you know what? I am young. I'm the age of your kid. I'm the age of your grandkid. But one thing that I do have over you is a really deep understanding of how Instagram works, how TikTok works, how to captivate an audience online, and how to captivate the next generation of buyers. And these buyers are, starting to become 18 and starting to make a, living wage. I understand how to attract those folks. And so that was a really big switch of how I turned a disadvantage into an advantage. And that was the start of me growing and building my company. So, there's been a lot, and even from a personal standpoint, right, that has allowed me to essentially embrace, I don't even know what lesson I would learn here, Rob, but I think through those experiences has just made me a little bit more of a grounded individual. It also, forced me to grow up a little bit too, right? UCSB is a party school. I definitely had my fun my freshman and sophomore year, and starting this company and speaking to some of the older bucks, I think mellowed me out a little bit too, because I had to kind of speak to par and speak to bat with them. Yeah, I mean, it's been wholly inclusive from a personal and business standpoint.
Yeah, I love that story about really embracing your authenticity because everybody always says, like the cliche, like fake it till you make it, but they never tell you when you've actually made it and you have to then adopt your own strategy and style and really be yourself. So a lot of people, from what I see, is they continue to fake it, and then they live this lie, and then they never actually transition into that authentic version of themselves, and they never quite get to that next level. So I love that you were embracing that. Like, yeah, let me get back into just embracing the youngness and just kind of being who I am and not really letting them take that essentially disrespect because they weren't treating you as like an equal or seriousness, and then not letting that bother you. So
Yeah, yeah.
that's great to see.
And to that point, Rob, there was actually, and I'm remembering now, a point where I called myself or dubbed myself the millennial marketer, because
Wow,
it
I
just
like
has
it.
a good ring to it, right? The thing is, and why I don't call myself that anymore is because the cutoff to be a millennial is what would be now the age of 28. I'm 26, so I'm actually Gen Z. I learned that. So there was somebody, back when I think I was 21, call myself that, being like, "Wait, millennial marketer, when were you born?" I was born, October 10th, 1998. Oh crap. You're not a millennial marketer. You're not millennial. You're a Gen Z marketer. Oh man. I don't think Gen Z marketer has like the same ring as millennial marketer, but
Doesn't
I
roll off as
definitely
nice.
agree. Exactly right. Yeah.
So I'm interested to hear a little bit more about StratDev and kind of like where that's at, what's going on with that, and where you planning to take that. Is this something else you're looking to eventually exit down the road, potentially, maybe?
Yeah, yeah. I think the dream for a lot of entrepreneurs is, to have an exit. I've gone through two, and they're phenomenally amazing feelings. I think it is the cocaine of being an entrepreneur, really, in terms of the serotonin that it brings out. And so, yeah, with StratDev, I don't know. I don't have that crystal ball. I love the process of M&A. If there's a great opportunity that comes our way, I'll definitely be open and entertain it. But right now we're growing so healthily. We're growing so amazingly. The customers really love us. We have an amazing track record here at StratDev with the work that we do, as well as just the sentiment that we have within the market, being a top 100 ranked agency, having almost near perfect 5-star reviews across every reviewable platform that you can think of. And if you're an angry customer listening to this, that's not a solicitation to give us a 1-star review. No, I'm kidding. Um, but and even then, the team is also just in a really great place. We're a phenomenal team of, I truly think, digital marketing rock stars, and we all really enjoy working with each other, and we all really enjoy the projects that we work on. So that translates to just great work for our team. We have a 4.9-star review on Glassdoor, which just shows, I think, the good environment and community that I built here. So I'm having a lot of fun building the business as is. We're very much in an up and right direction. We grew from quarter 1 to quarter 2 of 2025, 28%, and on track to achieve over 100% year over year growth, which is awesome. With that said, yeah, having fun with it.
That is pretty sweet. So what are some of the kind of projects that you work with, and like who are the different types of people that you work with?
Yeah, yeah. So we love our startup companies. We've transitioned the business over the past couple of years to really focus and home in on the B2B side of startup companies. These startup companies are SaaS companies. Sometimes they're software based, like enterprise applications or platforms. Sometimes they could be B2B service as well in terms of the service offerings that they provide. And so, with these startups, a lot of them come to us for a really specific outcome, which is profitable and scalable growth. So we essentially use a lot of different tactics, and our sales specialists and strategists will essentially work together to create an outcome-based engagement with our prospects, and if it's a match, work with them to achieve those outcomes. And so we do a phenomenal job doing that. We have about a 94% success rate in achieving outcomes that we set for ourselves and our customers within a 6-month period or less. Majority, by the way, of those outcomes are an ROI. So achieving a good ROI for our customers is why we exist, and something that we do very, very, very well. But yeah. I mean, we've done some really phenomenal, work. One customer that I'm thinking of in particular, we grew from 0 to $40 million in 5 months, and so that's definitely a unicorn client, and one of our greatest case studies. But we're very good at quick growth, which a lot of our startup companies are definitely looking for.
Wow. 0 to 40 in 5 months. That's incredible. You should be proud about that. And that's awesome. You had mentioned something before on how exciting and how awesome the feeling of exiting from the companies is. I'm curious to ask you, like, what are maybe some things that entrepreneurs or business owners might not think about when they are thinking of exiting?
I love this question. I am so enamored by the idea of M&A. I think that honestly, if I do, let's just say, sell StratDev some years down the line, I would probably want to be a business broker just because I have so much passion for the entire process. It's a stressful process, but there's definitely things that, to your point, Rob, you can do to make it a little bit less stressful. And take it from me, going through two acquisitions, I've learned my lessons. I put in my reps. So, one of my mentors, as well as an advisor for my company, told me something a little while ago that made a lot of sense. And he said, instead of trying to sell your business, work to build a sellable business, right? And so you find a lot of entrepreneurs essentially putting up their business for sale, or working with an investment banking company, investment banker, or a brokerage company, whatever that might be. Really in a sense of, man, I'm burnt out. Hey, we were going up and now we're going down, and I just want to sell the company. It's like I don't want to do this anymore. And so that's not very attractive for a buyer, right? That will usually lead to a really poor multiple or valuation in the business. That will lead to poor outcomes that are favored towards the buyer, not the seller. And you, the seller, want to make as much as possible, have the most favorable terms. And then three, just lead to a really stressful acquisition or due diligence period, specifically, where they're going to grill you on a lot of things. And the worst thing as a seller of a business could be is something called a retrade. A retrade is essentially when you come into a very long, extensive due diligence period with a potential buyer of your company, and they say, hey, we're going to give you, just for example, $1 million for this business, right? And then at like the 11th hour, right when you're about to sign stuff, they're like, hey, well, over the past 60 days, we found all these 24 problems, and now we're actually going to reduce our price down, to 500,000. At that point, you as a seller are just so tired and so exhausted that a lot of people just kind of give in at that point. You know what? Screw it. I'm just going to take it. Now you just lost 500K. It's a good amount of money for some people. And in reality, these numbers are not from $1 million to 5. It's from 10 million to 5 million, $5 million loss, or 100 million to 50 million, or 20 million. The worst I've seen is a retrade from $50 million to $1 million, 98%
Wow.
loss. Exactly. Right. And that was just due to terrible preparation on the seller's end. So how do you prevent that? Right. There are a couple of different things that buyers look for, and how you can build a sellable business. The first one, probably the most important one, is that there is no or as little founder dependency as possible. So, Rob, in your company or my company, right? If one of us gets hit by a bus, will the company still exist, right? If we're no longer here on this earth. And so if the answer to that question is yes, then there's a high likelihood that you've built a sellable business. A couple other things that they look for are up and to the right growth, right? They want to see an incline of growth rather than a decline of growth. They want to see really clean operations, that everything has a process and procedure, and even more importantly, that everything is documented, and documented very well. SOPs, or standard operating procedures, are a phenomenal way to do that. The third one is that you've essentially built a moat, that there is some differentiating factor about your business than others, and that if a competitor comes and tries to crush all your other competitors, can they crush you? And how quickly could they? But, having product market fit, which is very difficult for companies. I mean, there's massive billion-dollar companies that have yet to find product market fit, but if you have it, it's definitely a good thing. Now you have a good transition plan, right? That, you're very clear as a seller that selling your business, like, hey, these are the perfect ideal buyers, right? And this is why. And if you've been able to identify who those are, then it makes the conversation, when you are able to, find prospective buyers, a lot easier, because you have an idea of how you can integrate, and you have a transition plan behind that as well. So a lot of different ways to go about that. That's probably just touching the tip of the iceberg, maybe the 1% of the 10% of the 100% of the iceberg, but definitely things to think about. And if you have at least those in mind, you've built a really, really, really good kind of mainframe of building that sellable business. And start before you decide that you want to sell the business, right? Because you never know what that trigger is going to be to sell that business. It could be a health issue. It could be, you woke up and you're just like, I'm done. It could be whatever it is, right? And so sometimes it just kind of smacks you, and you're not expecting it. And if you've been working on building that sellable business beforehand, then you are ready to go when it's go time, right? Rather than finding yourself in a situation where you need to be reactive.
Yeah, thank you for sharing all that too, by the way, because that's like a ton of value. It's like a full masterclass right there. And like you
Boom.
said, that's probably just like the tip of everything. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I know a lot of the solopreneurs and side hustlers that I work with in my world, they kind of come in and they're definitely not thinking of exiting and they're not thinking of kind of growing and scaling. They're just looking to kind of make a couple extra bucks here and there with their day job. But there are a few individuals who do make that transition into solopreneur and then eventually building up and hiring a team. And you had mentioned earlier in our talk about how your team has fun. They really enjoy the projects that they got going on. They enjoy working. You've created such a great atmosphere. So for those listeners who are in that stage of kind of growing and hiring or looking to hire to create a team, how do you create such a culture and atmosphere where people are excited to show up and want to stick with you through thick and thin?
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. And just really quickly bring it back, even with your, the listeners listening in that run a side hustle business, there's no minimum to when your business is valuable to sell. There's a big misconception about selling business. Like, oh, wow, I need to be doing $100 million a year to do that. Not even close. There are platforms like bizbuysell.com. One of my favorites is acquire.com, where you can, have a side business, that's making, 5, 10K a month. And you can go and sell that business. There is a buyer for that business, right? I might be a buyer for that business if I'm being fully honest. And so there's always an opportunity to, there's no minimum to what you need to do in terms of revenue or success to be able to sell that business. So just something to keep in mind. Everything that I had said still applies. Great. So in terms of building culture, at StratDev as well as all my companies for that matter. Well, actually, let's talk about StratDev specifically. So StratDev is a B2B service-based company, right? We're a marketing agency. And I really strongly, truly do believe that we are only as good as our slowest man, right? Our slowest person. And so the team, the business is the people, and if the people are not happy, then the clients are not going to be happy because the performance is going to be bad, or the people are not going to care about the projects they're going to work on, and everything just goes downhill very, very quickly. And so right from the onset, I have worked hard to build a good culture and good community, hiring leaders and hiring co-operators within different pods of the business that are good people, that are enjoyable people, sometimes chatty people, right? People talk about like being personality hires. Yeah, we definitely got a couple of those. And team, if you're listening in, I'm not going to tell you who it is. That's for you to decide. But it just helps people feel really good. People are excited to clock in, distracted. At least I feel so or hope so or hear that. It's good. And then from me as a boss perspective, right, what I've done is a couple of things, which seem really trivial, but I've just learned over time, my team just so tremendously appreciates. The first one is, I'm kind of up here up on the top, right? I think a lot of employees can be a little bit nervous to go to the top and say, hey, this is why something is wrong and this is my recommendation to fix it. I make sure that we have no red tape in StratDev. And so I really enable and empower our team through open conversations, through anonymous postings and pollings of, are you happy in the business? What could we be doing better? And really encouraging people to come to me and say, hey, this is how things should change, or tell me what they need to be able to do a better job, to be able to be enabled and empowered to do a better job. And so that happens all the time. I probably accept 90% of things that come to me. I might not agree with it, but these are the folks that are in the day-to-day trenches of it, right? And so there are geniuses that work at StratDev. I think most of our team is. And so as a result, listening to them has really helped us. And I don't see everything, right? I'm not perfect by any means. And so that's been very helpful. The second thing is just showing in small little ways that we care. For example, giving everybody something as small as $100 Visa gift card for their birthday is like something that is just so unheard of. I see someone working really hard. We have an accolades channel in our Slack where we send messages of appreciation to everybody, and it's for the entire company to actually see. It could be, that they were stressed one week, or had a really, difficult client. And I'm like, okay, you know what? Here's, 2 tickets to go to the next town over. I got you guys a hotel, for you and your wife. I figured out babysitting for your kids. Go have fun. Small things like that just mean the world. And so we have a really like zero turnover with StratDev. Over the 5 years of growing this business, I think that I've fired or have people have dropped off maybe like 5 times out of the entirety. Once somebody joins StratDev, they're usually here forever, which is really great. And I know it's not a forever, so I knock on wood, but truly it's because people really enjoy working here.
Yeah, you shared a lot of great, valuable information there and strategies to really check in and make sure everybody is feeling really good and part of a great team. But I'm curious, like, yo, what's up? Sorry for interrupting. It's me, Rob. If you've been listening and thinking, man, I just know I'm capable of so much more, but something's just really not clicking, well, I've got something for you. It's called the Prime Performance Personality Quiz. And in just a few minutes, you'll uncover what's actually slowing you down. So whether it's a mindset block, energy drain, or a lack of clarity, this quiz is going to give you specific insights to help you build momentum again. Again, this quiz is free, fast, and honestly, freakishly accurate. So take it now over at survivingthesidehustle.com/quiz and stop spinning, start winning today. What about like some of the smaller guys where they might feel like they don't have time to necessarily check in or they can't like pay attention to Sally on everything they're doing? You got any advice for them? Because I feel like a lot of people are like even on a different scale, but solopreneurs who are juggling a lot of different things and then forgetting to even check in with their family at home. Like, hey, dude, you haven't checked in with your girlfriend or your wife in forever. Like they're part of your team. They might not be on payroll or directly helping with your business, but they're helping you be a better person so you can show up as the best you can for there. What kind of advice you got to somebody who's a little hard-headed like that?
Yeah. You're speaking to me because I can absolutely be that as well. But that goes to the point of, when you sign up to be an entrepreneur, like your personal and your business are intermingled from that moment on. And so, am I perfect with this? Hell no. Am I learning on a day-to-day basis? Hell yes. What I've done and what I've applied is something called time blocking. So Rob, you should see my calendar. I probably have anywhere between 15 and 20 calls on any given day, Monday through Friday. And then I have, a handful of calls on Saturdays and Sundays. It is a lot. And so, yes, I absolutely forget to show appreciation and some love. So what I do is I have this super busy calendar, but I actually add to it as well. And I time block, which basically says like, I'm going to do this at this time. And it might sound really overkill or a little bit weird for maybe some listeners that don't have such a busy schedule. For me, like I need to block out, I'm going to eat lunch from this to this time to force myself to do that. Or go to the gym every single day at 6:00. At 6:30, my girlfriend's name is Maisie. It says show Maisie appreciation and love at 6:30 to 7:00 every single day. And it's just my reminder to do that. Check in. How is she doing? Is everything okay? How can I be show the 5 different love languages to her, something like that, right? During that time. And so, yeah, I schedule my friends, hang out with, John from, 6 to 9 o'clock, right? That forces me to sometimes get out of the zone and just look at the macro, have a little bit of a broader perspective. It's like, I think it's biweekly, but like every 14 days or every 15 days, my executive assistant put on my calendar, touch grass, I get some air for an hour. And it's just like, yeah, go for a walk, do nothing, leave the phone, at the office or at home and just go chill. And so, that is just what I've done and helps me personally. I don't know if that's the best answer, but for me it is.
No, I mean, I think that's an excellent answer. I think that's a great reminder. I feel like everybody knows that they need to schedule personal time and they need to schedule the things that they want to get done. But I feel like a lot of people often forget to actually do it. And like the reminders too, like just get outside, breathe some fresh air, like go in the sun for 10 minutes, just get outside. That's also a powerful reminder too, because that's a little more harder to kind of measure on the impact it has on you. But I just know for a fact for myself that it plays a huge role for my own productivity and sanity as well.
I don't, I haven't experienced this, but one thing about me is that I learn vicariously through other people. Like when your grandfather, tells you all these stories about how he did these bad things and don't do this, kids, right? Most people are like, yeah, okay, Gramps. And then they do that same thing, right? I actually listen, to the elders and learn things. And so one thing that I've learned is that, to your point, Rob, you and I are both young. We neglecting these certain things, neglecting health, neglecting, relationships, things like that. We won't feel it today, but I promise you that we'll feel it in 10, 20, 30 years, right? That's when you start to see the repercussions. So focusing on that today, right? Trust me, it is very, very, very important for just your overall happiness. We got one life and we got to enjoy it and hopefully live as long as we can so we can enjoy as much of it as possible, right?
Of course. Well, Jordan, speaking of schedules and such, I know you've got a busy day and I appreciate you taking the time coming on and sharing some of your experience, your insights, and so much value on this episode. I mean, God damn, dude, like I know I'm taking away a whole lot. I know a lot of listeners are going to love this. They're probably going to listen to it multiple times. And for those who are interested in kind of like connecting more, following what you've got going or potentially working with you, how do people get in contact and stay up to date with what you got going on?
Yeah. LinkedIn is always a good way. LinkedIn.com /Jordan -A Calderon. Or if you just want a more holistic view of what I'm working on at any given time, jordancalderon.me. That's my personal website again, jordancalderon.me, M-E. And there's also a link where you can essentially reach out to me, ask questions, work with me. We can figure something out. But yeah, calendar is open for that. You can find that on my personal page.
Awesome. Again, dude, thank you so much. I really appreciate you hopping on and sharing. Before I let you go, though, I got to ask you, man, if you were to take away all the lessons that you've learned and the experiences and everything else and just everything and you were to boil it down to like one piece of advice to a younger Jordan who's like, yeah, I'm just going to start this little side hustle, get things rolling, to get them with their feet off the ground and get the momentum rolling, what would be your piece of advice to them?
Just do it. I think Nike had it right all along. Working with a lot of startup founders, I see so many entrepreneurs that just get into a state of analysis paralysis where they just overthink things. And it's like, everything just needs to be perfect before I launch. And that's not perfect anymore. I need to make it better, better, better. And so then you find yourself 3 years into this passion project, $100,000 into investing in this, and you haven't even launched, right? At that point, you might not even be excited about it anymore. And it just becomes dead space and wasted time. I see that so many times. And you will learn by doing. Figure it out along the way, but just go off the cliff and you'll figure it out. That's, same idea as the mama bird kicking the baby bird out. And you'll figure out how to fly. It might be at the very last second, but you'll figure it out.
Oh man, love that. Just do it. Just take that action. Just go with it. Learn on the way and don't be afraid to fail. I hear that so much and it's so powerful to remember. Constantly got to be a reminder for myself and everybody too. Just do it. Just go for it. So dude, love that. Love this episode. Appreciate you. Thank you, man. Hopefully we talk again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Rob, for having me. Cheers.
And that's it for this episode of Surviving the Side Hustle. If you found this valuable, the best way to support the show is to rate and review on Apple or Spotify. It helps get the show in front of more driven individuals just like you, and helps them discover the tools to get unstuck, break through burnout, and build something real. And you can always connect deeper with me, our guests, or grab free resources at survivingthesidehustle.com /Rob. Whether it's a strategy call, the Prime Performance Personality Quiz, some of our products, or just to check out our free content library. Connect with us over at survivingthesidehustle.com /Rob. And hey, remember this, you weren't meant to just grind. You were built to grow. So stay conscious, stay committed, and keep showing up. Peace, guys.